After 1 year of epic fails, Russia is at it again. Welcome to Talking Tactics, where we will tell you all you need to know about Moscow's newly launched offensive in Ukraine. According to multiple sources, Russia has amassed around 500,000 troops, 700 aircraft, and 1,800 tanks close to the front line. Their mission to capture at least Donetsk and Lugansk oblasts during the spring, to boast some kind of success to themselves and their own people. While many were waiting for a new lightning assault on the country like in February of last year, others say their offensive has already begun, but implementing a totally different strategy. Will they manage? Let's take a look at the map of the current front line. On this map, we can see the approximate positions of Russian troops. Keep in mind that this is an open access map, which means it's not complete. These are only confirmed positions of certain brigades or battalions. There will be more that Russia is trying to hide. Secondly, troops can obviously move, so what it looks like today doesn't have to be the same tomorrow. Priority number one for Russia is Bakhmut, which has little strategic and more symbolical value as it is located in a little slump, making whoever controls it an easy target. But the battle for the city, which has been going on for months, has become the heart of the war right now. The longer the fight lasts, the more Russia needs it to be able to show some success. Anyways, the only real importance of Bakhmut is that it is connected to a highway, MO3, which leads to Slavyansk and from there all the way to Kharkiv. The city of Slavyansk is one of the starting points of the war in 2014, and from here it's not so far to other strategical and logistical center points in the Donbas region, like Kramatorsk, for example. The PMC Wagner is at the forefront of the Bakhmut Offensive. It's a paramilitary group, so it operates like an army, but it is not officially under the command of the Kremlin. You can just call the Wagner group mercenaries to make it easier. They're led by Yevgeny Viktorovich Prigozhin, a criminal who served a 9-year stretch for armed robbery before he started a catering business that led him to rise to the ranks of the Kremlin, where he gained the trust of Vladimir Putin. Now, the relationship between these two has seemed to crumble during the past months. Prigozhin has openly criticized the Ukrainian invasion because of its dismal performance record on Russia's side, and he has vowed to capture Bakhmut with his own forces to prove that he can do it better. Some say that he's lining himself up to become Putin's successor, but let's not concentrate on rumors. In the area of Bakhmut, the Wagner group is, among others, supported by the Russian 57th Motor Rifle Brigade and 51st Airborne Regiment. But Russia is not only concentrating on Bakhmut. Another critical and heavily underreported point of clashes is around the city of Kreminna. The city in the oblast of Lugansk is separated to the west by a huge forest. This forest, since late summer, when Ukrainian forces liberated Liman, a city which was hugely important for Russia because it's a railroad hub, is largely contested. The dense forest makes it possible for both sides to send assault troops, and while Ukrainians have once almost taken Kreminna and Russians have once almost recaptured their lost land, the end result, if we are being honest, is the following. The situation is extremely tense, both sides fight for a few square meters, and many are dying. Check out our correspondence report from the front line in the forest by clicking on the link in the description. The assault on the forest of Kreminna is conducted on the Russian side by the 30th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade and at least 4 Baros battalions, which are Russian Army Reserve Forces, so badly trained conscripts. The timing is earlier than expected. Moscow hopes, by being early, that they're able to beat the muddy season of spring, but also to gain ground before the delivery of a lot of promised Western aid, including tanks like the Leopard or Abrams, infantry fighting vehicles, and so on. However, the end of February is relatively warm this year, so Bezdurija, the time of roadlessness where everything sinks into mud, is already starting, unless winter decides to make a surprise comeback. But what is the strategy? Moscow's tactics are different to last February, when their approach was to stage a blitzkrieg, an invasion of lightning speed via air and land, aimed at capturing strategic points, roads and cities in just a couple of days, resulting in what they hoped would be a collapse of critical infrastructure, media as well as political and military institutions in Ukraine. What they are trying to do now is to capture meter by meter, sending waves and waves of troops, concentrating on maybe a single road, a single farmhouse or tree line. If 50 die, they send 50 more, making the defense extremely tiring and costly for Ukraine.
Нас штурмують щоденно. Тут відбиті вагнерівці до нас топають. В них кількість, напевно, безкінечна.
But the Russians are just throwing men into these almost human wave attacks. They've got, criminals in the front, people that they've brought out of the convicts that they brought out of prisons, then mobilized troops behind them, and then regular troops behind them. And the regular troops are called barrier troops, and their job is to fire on anybody who retreats.
Playing the numbers game is an old Russian approach. Joseph Stalin already did that in World War II. Russia's troops rely highly on newly mobilized soldiers called MOBIKI, so they're usually ill-prepared, both physically and psychologically. Also, they're not equipped adequately. It's almost logical then that Russia just sends waves after wave on the front, hoping for some kind of breakthrough. And to be fair, it has worked before. But there are two problems. Number one is that the areas of Donetsk and Lugansk have effectively been a war zone since 2014. It means they are heavily fortified from both sides. So Russia, which has over 140 million inhabitants, much more than Ukraine, can rely on numbers, but they cannot use them as they did, for example, in the Second World War. Due to fortifications and smart Ukrainian defense, there are only certain points where Russia can advance. So they do have a lot of men and a lot of heavy machinery, yes, but it can't be sent all at once, and instead it is sent one after the other at certain points. So Ukraine can defend, kind of like on the game Endless Siege. This is incredibly demoralizing for the Russians, who see their comrades go ahead and never come back, and when they are finally called up, there is no misunderstanding that they are being sent to almost certain death. Since Russia is having problems advancing on the ground, they will be looking to the sky for help. The success of their offensive will also be decided in the battle over air control. Russia's air force is statistically far superior to Ukraine's, but a combination of patience, Western military aid, and efficient utilization of Ukraine's means have stopped Russia from establishing air control for the past year. And it was something they were heavily relying on from the beginning. Not having air control means whenever they take off, they are at high risk of getting shot down. And also Ukraine still manages to get fighter jets and helicopters into the air to defend as well as to attack. The French war photographer Anthony Lalica was able to capture an aerial assault by Ukrainian helicopters on Russian positions near Bakhmut just a couple of days ago. In the end, the big question remains, what can Russia really do in the sky and on land that they have not tried before? And the answer is probably nothing. They're gaining a little bit of ground, but the prize is incredibly high, and the land they take is really of no importance, even to the Kremlin. As a result of this frustration, in Russia itself, the tone seems to be getting more radical. Propaganda is getting more crazy. We found this picture out of Russia online. On the card reads, "Na Washington," to Washington. But for an army that in over a year of war hasn't managed to achieve even a little of what they originally wanted, Washington seems quite far-fetched. Thanks for watching Talking Tactics. Hit like and subscribe, and be sure to check out our next video.